This is the new TC Pride Podcast, episode 27, part 2 of on-location coverage of Gaylaxicon 2016. TC Pride Podcast, we are on location at Gaylaxicon 2016. I'm hanging out in the game room here, just sitting with some attendees here. They're heavily involved in a game here, but they said I could talk to them for a few minutes, so I'm here with...
Inver.
Phil.
Matthew.
And why did each of you come to the convention today? What specifically brought you here?
I came because I've been going to a local con for a bunch of years, and then I noticed that this one was in town, and then it was only town for this year because it moves around. So it seemed like kind of got to do it while it's here, and yeah, it just seemed like it would be a really good time.
My godfather is actually the convention chair, Don Kaiser, and he was like, we need volunteers to help run things. So I was like, yeah, I'll come and volunteer. And so I've spent most of my time here actually chopping vegetables for the veggie tray for the hospitality suite. I have blisters on my hand from it because it was a lot of vegetables. People are eating a lot of food here, but now I'm taking a break to play a game.
It's got to be done though, right? It's got to be done.
People got to eat. And we have... As befitting the hospitality suite at a Pride event, we have multiple colors of cauliflower. So like a little rainbow effect on the veggie tray itself, and then a bunch of other things, doing where we could. So that was a lot of fun, but very stressful to coordinate all that with just a handful of volunteers, especially because the hospitality suite opened at 8:30 for breakfast and is open until 2 a.m. So really just... There's always has to be a presence there feeding people and just representing the spirit of openness and inclusivity that are the overtone and tonic of Pride and everything it stands for.
Being from Wisconsin, Madison, Gaylaxicon being close by, thought I would drop by and represent queer pride.
I would say I'm really into, I read a lot, I'm really into books and online nerd communities, not so much like gaming, kind of into anime, a little bit into cosplay, I dabble in a lot, but mostly kind of books, anime, fan fiction, online nerd groups, stuff like that.
I read a lot of science fiction, watch animes, but I don't really identify with any of those things as this is who I am. I was just I am an individual, everyone's an individual. I don't like it when everyone tries to put everyone else in boxes, because no matter how well intentioned the box, you're still putting people in a box so that you don't have to get to know them and you can just judge them on the surface level.
And I came here mostly to learn and listen to kind of more of the radical niches of the queer community and what they're doing in all these fields within science fiction and fantasy and horror and whatnot. Yeah.
And so from talking to some of the organizers, I'm kind of getting the sense that the sci-fi community over the past number of years has just sort of had a lot of growth in openness and inclusivity. Kind of to what Phil was saying here. Would you say that that's a general sort of sense that you've noticed, is that people are sort of less in boxes and people are kind of more accepting?
I would agree with that. I'd say that this community is a more accepting and open-minded community, and I think that stems from the very essence of what science fiction and fantasy things represent. They represent a forward-looking future where we're not constrained by what the status quo has established as normal, but in the context of fiction, each author can create a vision of how the world could be, and just by consuming that entertainment and the philosophical ideas that are going to be present in those, because they're the creation of a creative mind, and reading more and more of those and experiencing more and more of those, you just gain enough additional perspectives just from the fundamental nature of science fiction, whether you're a straight person who enjoys sci-fi or a gay person, a bisexual person, a demisexual, an asexual, whatever you are. The more viewpoints you explore and experience, the less scary someone else's perspective is to you, even if it's not one that you personally share. And you realize that every person's perspective, so long as it doesn't negatively impact someone else in a direct way, is something that should be given its corner of the garden to grow. And I think that sci-fi and conventions like this are great for allowing a variety of things to bloom and grow.
I can say within this con specifically, there's been some great panels that are really challenging, like heteropatriarchy and white supremacy, with some really awesome panelists, queer people of color, those that are non-binary, really talking about some awesome new ways of communicating and writing about the queer community or queer people and not gender non-binary people in their stories and in their books, and it's really exciting.
With diversity in the sci-fi community in general, I kind of feel like I've seen more diversity in certain places. I don't necessarily go out and find a lot of really new sci-fi books. I usually find like ebooks or online stuff like webcomics, and I'll find that there's a lot more diversity there in those spaces where I'm seeing a lot of kind of constant updates and a lot of interaction with people kind of on a constant basis because they're shorter or they're kind of updating as they go. So the fan interaction is high. So I'll see a lot more non-binary characters, asexual characters, like characters who aren't necessarily within the usual within the LGBT, but also kind of outside of the four main categories that most people at least have some basic knowledge of. So that's where I've been seeing a lot of representation of groups that otherwise, like in the mainstream media, if maybe you find like one asexual character I can name from a TV show, Sirens. There's one ace character in there. Otherwise, there's not any non-binary characters I know of that aren't aliens or something else that's not quite human. So. Yep, that's where I found it. I mean, I'd definitely like to see more characters that, like, basically more characters of everything, because if you have, like, only the tokens, then they represent the whole group. If you just have, like, one bi character, then whatever you do with them kind of represents your stance on bi characters, whereas if you have, like, two of them at least, they can both go different directions. You're not going to fall into that trap of whatever you do kind of seems to be a message of this is what you think these people are. So I think I would like to see basically just diverse casts that are so full of characters that nobody is a token for anything.
Kind of like what Inver was saying, definitely more opportunity for people of color and queer individuals as well to be more accepted, or maybe given more opportunity and advantages in different areas, like in publishing firms and on websites. Just getting more awareness and attention, and getting more of the spotlight.
I would like to see more television shows that have multiple perspectives from different real people, rather than stereotypes turned into characters. It's one thing to have a character featured in a show that happens to be gay or bisexual or something. It's another thing to have that be part of that character, but not have it be the whole purpose of that character in the show. To really show that people in the community are not just a stereotype of how the media usually portrays people of different orientations, and we need to introduce things, establish them, have them just be present in every science fiction show and every mainstream show too, so that people stop saying that this is something that's different and bad, and just say this is part of the natural, normal variety, and it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to just react with in fear, but it's part of the human spectrum, and accept it at that, and move on to what are we going to do with the world, because, I mean, there's a lot of social issues that we can address through fiction and how we represent our things, but at the end of the day, we still have a planet we need to live on, and the ideas that come up in science fiction are the sparks that carve channels for the engineers and the scientists to create real technology. Like the cell phones we have in our pockets can do more than the data pads we envisioned in Star Trek, and so we have to unleash our creativity and not disregard ideas just because of where they came from.
For me, I've been going to a local con for about 10 years. It's a lot bigger than this, though granted it doesn't move around. It's got its own established space and people. But this one, it seemed really cozy, and it's also seemed like really friendly and open. Like there's less panels than I'm used to. There's less stuff, but as they get like this is just kind of moved over here. But I've really enjoyed like all my panels. I've really enjoyed the atmosphere. Everyone feels really cool and really like I've just had some great conversations at random with people. It feels like it's a really nice space, and it's really nice to feel surrounded by people, not just like me in a nerdy sense, but like me in terms of being, not straight, not cis, somehow, queer. So that's been really nice.
Also, kind of what Inver said, it's been a really quaint experience with a sort of smaller number compared to other cons. There's a communal type feel, greater opportunity to develop more relationships with not only the people that have purchased tickets, but also to meet some of the panelists and some of the guests of honor and really get into their minds and yeah, it's been a really, really rewarding, exciting, awesome experience.
It's been fun. I haven't been able to see a whole lot of the stuff because I've been taking the times when most of the panels have been going as a chance to catch up on prep and for the food, but a lot of different people are coming through the con suite, and from seeing all the people that have been moving through it, like some of these people are very introverted, very shy. There's a good range between the younger generations, and also the people that have been part of this sci-fi loving queer community since sci-fi became a thing as well. And just the stories that people have of cons going back, and how this one compares. It's how maybe this one was bigger, but this one did it better, and all those things. Just hearing again more perspectives and getting a more complete picture of what life really is like. Because if you spend all your life just looking down at the path in front of you and never asking anyone else what they've seen, you might find yourself going in circles, but thinking you're going somewhere new.
Well, all right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I know I kind of got in the middle of your game here, pretty involved, so I'll let you guys get back to your game and enjoy the rest of the con.
No, thank you. That was a really fun experience, talking about this stuff.
Thank you. It's always fun to have a chance to speak your mind about things and have a chance people might listen.
Burl Zorn. I'm on a committee, and I run the gaming. I bring a large selection of games, and then there's two other guys that help and brought games for people to play too, so people just pick them out, grab some other people and play. Minicon used to be the primary thing for sci-fi groups to get together and meet, and then they they decided it had grown too big and they wanted to shut it down, and then two other cons grew off of that, Convergence and MarsCon. And then after that, more and more conventions have been sprouting up because there's a huge fan base in the Twin Cities. I would say that a lot of changes have been made. I mean, there are some of the role-playing companies are doing things that bring in transgender and bi and gay and characters involved just as a normal thing instead of as victim people that are victims and stuff like that. You're seeing more people just enjoy the fact that other people are fans and not being stuck on their kind of thing is better than the other kind of thing. I used to see that a lot, and I'm seeing that less and less. Well, if anybody is gay or bisexual and has or trans or has an interest in science fiction stuff and would like a small close-knit convention where they can get together and play and play games and socialize and get to know other people that are in the community that are writers or game designers, etc. It all happens here. So, and everybody and it's also everybody who is friendly to the community is also welcome. So it's just a nice place to relax and get to know people as people.
Estelle Daniels.
And Estelle, we are in the
the dealer's room.
The dealer's room. So you were selling some stuff.
I was selling all sorts of goodies. I sell jewelry and books and objets d'art and all sorts of other goodies. I tend to be in the pagan Wiccan community more. We're also an alternative community. There's a lot of overlap with the GLBT. We're certainly GLBT friendly, way friendly. I got into the science fiction community long ago and far away. And in those days, there was no such as a separate pagan community or a separate gaming community or a separate comics community. everything was together. I mean, I remember the first few conventions I went to. I went to TorCon in '73, and I came back with a giant suitcase full of comic books because I'm a comic collector as well. And so as it's branched out, you got Convergence, which is kind of a gathering of the tribes. But there are a lot more niche-type conventions, but there's still a lot of overlap. We all came from the same place, pretty much. I got to college, and Minneapolis in '73 was happening. That was in the spring, and that was my first science fiction convention, and I went there, and it's like, oh, yeah. Because, I mean, I'd been reading science fiction forever. And I just didn't know there was such as Worldcons and any of that stuff. I mean, there was no internet in those days. There was nothing. It was all zines. You know, people would hand print them and then distribute them through the mail and stuff. Well, D&D started in the '72, '73 with Gary Gygax. Then in the fall of '73, he came to the U here, the University of Minnesota, and introduced us all to D&D. I got my 3-box set right after Thanksgiving '73. It was copyright '74, and we've been playing. We played D&D, and I was the original female in the gaming world.
Wow.
I gamed, and so I have a different perspective. Well, I love this convention because it's a smaller convention. It's quiet. The vibe is so nice and mellow. I mean, everybody's having fun. Everybody's having a good time, but it's not millions and billions of people, because some of us don't like millions and billions of people. It's just a really nice convention. It's well run, and not everybody has to be GLBTQ to help be here or run this, and that's okay. You know, we're all into science fiction, and we're all into the fandom, and we just enjoy it.
The TC Pride podcast has been a production of Podletter Media and Twin Cities Pride. Subscribe now on iTunes or Google Play and submit your first Pride story at myfirstpride.org.